Welcome back to Drum Electric. That was definitely a good intro. I know we all know what I just said. I just said blah, 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 blah. So, welcome back to Drum Electric. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and if you're a returning subscriber, then it's great to see your beautiful face. I think my favourite thing about filming these videos is for sure the fact that I can just watch my hair get progressively more and more crazy. Same with the beard. Eventually I'll just, it'll just be like down here and I'll look like Gandalf. And it'll be a great time in the world. So, this is now part 2 of our how to live stream drums, specifically using Zoom and for teaching and all that good fun stuff. If you haven't seen part 1, then make sure you check it out up here, and if you have and you're coming here from part 1, then it's lovely to see you. Welcome to ramping it up just a little bit. Part 1 was all about how we can live stream drums with hopefully the things we already have in our studios, in our drum rooms, stuff like that. So we just used the Zoom H6 recorder, and then just used our webcam on our laptops, and it was a great time. So this is part 2 of 3, where we'll be looking at the different methods to live stream drums. Obviously part 1 is kind of the easiest, the cheapest option. Part 2, which is what we're looking at today, will require potentially some investment. So this is external software, different mics, audio interfaces, stuff like that. So we're starting to get a little bit more complicated. Now part 3 is sort of the maximum complication for me anyway. So I'll be using multiple different softwares for different audio types, video software to have multi-camera angles and picture-in-picture stuff, and stuff like that. So now there are even more complicated methods, but that's where you're starting to get into the live broadcasting world, where you're starting to have multiple people. This is all stuff that I run as one person. There are also people like Craig Blundell, who streams with Roland and stuff like that from his home studio. If any of you have been part of his live masterclasses, then it's absolutely something to check out. He uses all of Roland's AV side of stuff, where they've got a bunch of streaming things, different buttons and cool looking things, which are quite expensive, but I really want. So that's something to check out for future reference. This is all stuff that I do here in my studio and that I've kind of just learned from this current situation. So like I said before, this video is the next step up from part 1. This will require some investment if you don't have the software already. This is what I'm personally using. I'm showing you guys. You can absolutely apply it across the board. So again, I'll be using Zoom from a Mac, but you can use Skype from a PC. It's a good time for everybody. This stuff will work across the board. So, let's get straight into it. Let's stop me waffling on and start looking at the good stuff. So like I said, today is a slightly more complicated setup. So we're now using a nicer camera rather than our webcam, and we're starting to go through logic and audio interfaces rather than just using the Zoom recorder. Now, on to what we'll need for today. Just to point out, as always, this is by no means the right way of doing it. This is just purely my way that I've been doing the last couple of weeks while we've been in isolation. There are by far better, stronger softwares and specially suited equipment to do this sort of thing. And if you're into that sort of stuff, comment it down below. It would be great to share it with everyone. But like I said, this is just stuff that I'm personally using, that I have in my studio, and that I'm kind of learning as I go along. So, the things I'm using to complete this setup are the Canon 80D or a GoPro, and if you're using the Canon or a DSLR, I'm using the Canon EFS 10-18mm 4.5, the Blackmagic Ultra Studio mini recorder or a capture card of your choice, loopback, logic, various drum mics, an audio interface, and the Behringer C3 as a specific microphone. Now again, I mentioned it before, this is the same with part 1, this is across the board. This is what I'm using in this video if you want to know exactly, but other stuff will work. By no means am I saying you've got to have this equipment for it to work. This is just stuff that you can interchange and work differently with to get it working. Like the audio interface, I'm personally using the Focusrite 18i20. You don't need that one. That's just the one that I'm using. Same with the camera. I either use a DSLR or a GoPro, usually at the same time. You don't have to do it with either of these. You can find a camera of your choice. It can be a Sony, it can be a GoPro, it can be the Sony action cams, stuff like that. As long as it's got a HDMI out, then you're good to grumble. So the general gist of it's the same, it's just I'm using specific software. Again, just take what I'm doing and apply it to your own software. So that's the equipment list. It's quite a bit longer than the one before, but I'll show you how to set it up. It's relatively simple once you've got your head around it, but it does take a minute just to think which inputs are going where and which outputs are going where, but I'll show you that. So let's head behind the kit and I'll show you how to set it all up. So as you can see, we are now behind the kit. I've got my Mac just next to me where I set it up pretty much the same as last time, where I want it in nice and easy reach, easy access for when I'm playing the kit behind me. So unlike last time, there are a couple more things that we need to set up. Let's start with the audio front. So just on the kit behind me, all I'm running are 2 overheads, a snare and a kick. That is it. I don't have any tom mics on the kit for now, just because I don't quite need them for the stuff that I'm teaching, the stuff that I'm doing. But if you choose to have them on the kit, then by all means. The mics are also nothing fancy by any means. The overheads are I think they're Red 5 Audio pencil condensers. They're really, really old. They're just some that I had laying around in the studio. On the snare drum, it's just a snare top. I've got an SM57, and then on the kick, which is just in front of the bass drum skin. On this kit, I don't have a porthole cut into it just yet, so my mic is nearly pressing against that skin. It's not quite pressing because it gives a really nice amount of low end, but that's just an Audix D6 because it's personally a favorite bass drum mic of mine, and it always just sounds really good on stuff that I'm using it on. Now, you can use whatever you want as long as you're getting a signal from the kit. It doesn't even have to be 4 mics. You can just have 2 overheads if you want. Totally up to you. All of that is running through a little rack unit that I have down here, which has got the Focusrite 18i20. Again, that's just personal preference. I really like the way it sounds. I like how easy it is to use, and it's in a really nice sort of price mark. But again, totally up to you. As long as there's an audio interface and you can get inputs from your mics, doesn't really matter. For my voice, I'm using a lovely Cheap and Cheerful Behringer C3. It's, again, nothing fancy. It's just what I had laying around, and it works really, really well. All of this is just going into Logic. This is just my DAW of choice because I run things on Mac, but you can do stuff if you're on Mac. You can run them through GarageBand. You can use Audacity, which is a free software across the board. That's on both PC and Mac. There are loads of other options like Pro Tools, Cubase, stuff like that. Whatever you're using, whatever DAW you're using, as long as you have the choice of inputs, outputs, and you can run live mics through it, then you're totally fine. Now, on the video front, I'm just using the Canon 80D, which is what I use to film all these videos, and I'm just taking the HDMI out. That's going into the Blackmagic Ultra Studio Mini recorder that I got a couple of years ago, and then that's just going straight into my Mac. I'm not running it through any software. I'm just picking that straight up by Zoom, which I'll show you in a second. Again, you can change that for GoPros, you can change that for the Sony cameras, anything like that. As long as it's got a HDMI out and you can see the live view from that camera, it's all hunky-dory. Now, to get all of the audio working, you'll need a piece of software called Loopback. Now, I used a free piece of software called Ladiocast. It wasn't the best in the world, but it did do the job, and like I said, it's free. But a lovely guitarist that I know named Stu Brewer showed me this software. It was a lot better. He's getting really, really nice HD audio from his videos, so thank you, Stu, for that. If you do want to go and check him out, then please check out Studio Brudio on Instagram and various social medias. He is an insane guitarist that I've worked with over the years, including all of the fretless stuff, and all of your electronic psychedelic goodness is where you'll find him. So if you're into all that stuff, go check out Studio Brudio and Keeper's Brew. You will not regret it. So Loopback is a virtual mixer, essentially. That's the best way of looking at it. Basically, it acts as the middleman. So you're going to send all of your software through to Loopback, and Loopback will be seen as the microphone by your computer. Okay, so it's just the middleman. It's what you want to send all of your audio to in one lovely place to then send it to Zoom, Skype, whatever you're using. What you'll want to do is you will want to open Logic, and then you'll want to open Loopback. Now, Loopback looks like this, as you can see on my screen. It's really, really simple. So on the left-hand side, you've got Loopback audio. In the middle, you've got your output channels, so that's where all that audio is compiling into one lovely place. And on the right, you've got the monitors, so that's where you can hear it back in your own ears. So what we're going to do is we're just going to select Logic as our source, because that's where all of my mics are going into. That's where the drum mics and my voice is going into. So just going to hit the add button on sources, select Logic. There it is, easy as that. Now Logic is going through into Loopback. I'm going to set up a monitor as well, just so I can hear exactly what Logic is outputting. So if there are any issues, then I can hear it as well, because on Zoom, you won't be able to hear it back, which is a great feature of Loopback. So on the right-hand side onto monitors, I'm going to hit the little add button, and I'm just going to select the Scarlett 18i20, which is my Focusrite, the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20, because that's where I'll have my headphones plugged into. So now I can hear everything that's going on within Loopback. As you can see as well, when you select the audio interface, you have all of the output options. So you can not only output to channels left, right channels, you can output to any of those other line outs that you can find on the back of your interface. So if you look on my screen, you can see all of the outputs, but mine's just routing to channels left, right, the main outputs, and that's all I need it for, which is good. That's all of the mics. They're all going through a lovely one singular place. Now we just need to load up Zoom. We're going to head into our preferences, audio, and then we're just going to select the mic as a loopback audio. All right, and that means that everything that's going into loopback will now be picked up and detected by Zoom, and that's that. So now if you want to add anything else like Spotify, YouTube, stuff like that, if you add that as a source on loopback, that will go into your main outputs and then go and be detected as a mic by Zoom. It works really, really well. Now, don't forget there are some lovely advanced options in this Zoom, which I covered in part 1. So if your audio is sounding slightly iffy and stuff like that, make sure you check out part 1, where I go through some advanced options that you may not know about that might fix it. So that's that. That's all of the audio front setup. Like I said, it's relatively simple, but it can be mildly mind-boggling. So just take a minute, get used to that, and try and work out your own personal setup for the best options. The other thing you'll want to do is then change the video settings. So to do that, again, just go into preferences, hit video, and then you'll want to select your capture card. So in my case, it's the Blackmagic Ultra Studio Mini. So I'm just going to hit that list and select the one that's on there. Now with the Blackmagic one, there are so many different options. There's a horrendous amount. I pretty much just click until I find one that works. There's not much difference. So that's both things set up. Now let's head into Zoom. Well, hit record, and you can see exactly what this looked like as if you're a student or on the other end of a Zoom call. So welcome into Zoom. As you can tell already, it looks nicer, it sounds a little bit nicer, it's a good time for everybody. Now this is directly from Zoom. This is exactly what it would look like as if you're either on a Zoom stream with myself, or if you're watching a live stream, this is what it looks like. So straight away, it's a lot clearer. So this is footage from the DSLR, just going straight into that capture card and then straight into Zoom. And then the audio is, I've got the C3 just out of view here, just off a frame in the corner. And then all the mics coming through Logic, which you'll hear in a second. As you can tell straight away from part 1, where we had it through the webcam, where it was a lot lower on the laptop and stuff like that, it's a lot nicer. It's a lot nicer to look at. I've got the light set up, so it's quite nice footage as well on that front. It's nice and bright in here. It's a really nice wide angle lens with the 10 to 18mm, and just all round the level has stepped up. With this, same as last time, what I can do is I can swivel around the kit, make stupid noises as I go, and then straight away I can play some drums. So and then I can turn back around and carry on talking. So as you can tell, it's a lot smoother this time now that we've got it all going through the audio interface. The only effects I've got is on the C3, obviously, as I turn around and talk compared to when I drum. There's a much bigger difference in the way that there's essentially a backwards gate on it. That means when loud noises are detected, it'll immediately drop out. Then on the kit, I've got no external effects. So I've literally just panned the overhead left and right, and that is just the audio you're getting from the mics straight into Logic and then straight out. In part 3, we'll look at all the effects chains and stuff like that you can have on it, and I'll run you through what I'm running on my kit to make it sound what it does through Logic, and then it will sound even nicer on top of that. If you're running this setup, you will need relatively good Wi-Fi to get the best result, because if you don't have a good Wi-Fi, then there's stuff like latency and the quality will change because it won't be able to keep up with what you're streaming through it, especially in part 3 when we've got multiple cameras, different software, stuff like that. But like I said, this is from Zoom. It looks lovely, it looks crispy, it sounds delightful. It's a good time for everybody. And that's it. That's part 2 of our little live streaming adventure, where we got a little bit more complicated with our setup. We're now using a fancier camera, we're using slightly fancier audio and different things. So you may need a mildly powerful computer to do this, because it is starting to run multiple things, especially in part 3, which you should absolutely subscribe for, because that's our next big video. It's going to be exciting, it's going to be fun. You should absolutely subscribe so you don't miss it. As always, if you have any comments, questions, or you've even got your own method that you really like, please comment it down below, because I'd love to check them out, and I'm sure other people would too. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for all of our shiny new videos, and I will see you in the next one.